Hello and welcome to Dining with Death, True Crime Tuesday. A few years ago, I was watching a very disturbing and very good horror movie called The Eyes of My Mother, about a girl who lives on a farm with her parents. Her mother is a surgeon and she teaches the girl how to surgically remove the eyeballs of animals that are going to be stuffed. The girl then uses these skills later on in life in a horrifying manner. As I watched this film, it dawned on me that I had heard a very similar story before, but the story it reminded me of was not a film. It was real life. This is the case of the eyeball killer. Let's get into it. December 13th, 1990. We start this story in the very rough and dangerous area of Oak Cliff in the south part of Dallas, where iron bars cover the windows of occupied homes and where abandoned and boarded up homes serve as drug dens and shelter for those without it. Gangs and prostitutes roam the area and most are heavily addicted to drugs. It is a tough life and a tough area where people scratch out difficult lives. In 1990, Dallas had 2 murders a day, making it one of the most dangerous cities in the country. Someone calls the police. There is a body sprawled out in the middle of the street. A Dallas prostitute has been murdered. The woman is Mary Lou Pratt, only 33 years old. She has been brutally beaten and shot in the back of the head with a .44 caliber gun. No male biological material is found on the body. As medical examiner Dr. Elizabeth Peacock examines the body carefully, preparing her forensic report for the police, she makes a horrifying discovery. She lifts the eyelids of the body to record the victim's eye color for her report and sees that the victim has no eyeballs. They have been removed. As she looks closer, she is amazed to realize not only have they been removed, but they have been cut with exact surgical precision in a way that is not even taught in medical school. The 6 major muscle groups holding the eyeball were still intact, but cleanly severed. The extraction of the eyeballs was so precisely executed that when the eyelids were closed, you couldn't even tell that the eyeballs were missing. Dr. Peacock immediately contacted the police to let them know Dallas might have a very serious problem. February 10th, 1991. On the same street Mary Lou Pratt had been found weeks earlier, the body of Susan Beth Peterson, age 27, is found laying just outside the Dallas city limits. She has been shot in the head. Susan Beth Peterson had been an ensign in the Navy, and she was known as one of the toughest workers in Dallas. She regularly fought with customers and would even get into verbal arguments with the police that patrolled her area. Susan was known as someone you shouldn't mess with, and so when she was found, cops knew it must have been someone that she had allowed to get close. Too close. The body is brought into the morgue. Once again, Dr. Elizabeth Peacock begins her examination. Again, she finds no male biological evidence on the body, and again, she lifts the eyelids to record the eye color, and again, she is horrified at what she finds. The victim is missing her eyeballs. Dr. Peacock is the first to know Dallas has a serial killer. Dr. Peacock recalls, "I got a little chill. I felt the hairs stand up on the back of my neck as I realized what was happening." Police bring in the FBI, whose agents use what was, at the time, the most advanced computer network in the world. They search the records of known offenders and cannot find a single case of murder victims with their eyeballs removed. The FBI then creates a behavioral profile of the killer using information gathered from the crime scenes. Roy Hazelwood, the granddaddy OG of the profiling world, says the killer displays common serial killer traits: a hatred for women, a belief that we are all bad, and a willingness to inflict pain. This killer is brazen. He makes no attempt to hide the bodies of his victims. He wants them to be found. He wants people to see what he has done. He wants people to see what he has taken. He is proud of what he has done. The profile suggests that the perpetrator is a white male in his mid-30s, possibly a resident of Oak Cliff or a nearby area, with an educational background in science. The profile says the killer would most likely be physically fit and might have friends in law enforcement. They know very little about the killer, but they think he might be driving a pickup truck. It's kind of amazing the things that they come up with in these profiles and how often they're actually correct. The only thing they feel sure of is that the killer will strike again. Roy Hazelwood reports that the killer would be ecstatic at the chaos he was causing. Hazelwood said this type of killer would have actual glee over the fact that he was holding a city hostage and that so many people were afraid of him, and that feeling of power and control would be intoxicating for such a man. The police have no choice but to alert the public. They're careful about how they go about it because they don't want to cause a panic. They leave out most of the horrific details, and they definitely leave out the details about the eyeballs. Prostitutes are warned, and posters are plastered all over the city. Like I said, they do not release the information about the eyeballs, but a reporter leaked the fact that there had been, quote, facial mutilation of the bodies. That sent the press into a frenzy, and before long, someone was able to get the details about the mutilations. The media dubbed the murderer the eyeball killer. Police staked out hourly motels, and female officers went undercover to try and catch the killer. A Jack the Ripper mentality took over Dallas. A worker named Veronica Rodriguez came forward and told police that she was with Mary Pratt on the night she had been killed. She reported that she and Mary Pratt had both been picked up by one man and that he had hired both women for their services. The three went into a vacant field just outside of Dallas. When they were finished, a fight broke out between Mary Pratt and the man. As Veronica was getting dressed, she watched in horror as the man shot and killed Mary just feet away from her. The man then turned to her. Veronica ran for her life through the field to a nearby home with the man chasing her. He turned and ran back to the field when he saw the porch light come on as Veronica banged on the front door of the home. She told police he was a middle-aged man with salt and pepper hair who was driving a white pickup truck. Police were hesitant to believe Veronica Rodriguez because they knew her. She was suffering from extreme drug addiction and was known to be incoherent a lot of the time. She had told lies to police over the years and seemed to have a really hard time discerning what was real and what was not. The police actually referred to Veronica in their statements as being brain fried. It's not very nice. Veronica even tells them that the man's house she ran to, who was named Axton Schindler, told Veronica that he knew who the killer was. Police took Schindler into custody to question him, and he denied telling Veronica what she claimed. Now, because police don't believe Veronica's story, they don't put much stock in anything she has to say. That was a mistake. Police continued their patrol of Oak Cliff and constantly warned street workers of the danger that they were in. Unfortunately, because the first two victims were Caucasian women, workers of color believed that they were safe and they took little to no precaution. That would prove to be a deadly mistake for one woman. March 10, 1991. Exactly 1 month from the date Susan Beth Peterson is found, a call comes into the Dallas Police Department. A third body has been found. Shirley Williams, a black prostitute, is dead, and the killer has dumped her body right next to an elementary school. A waitress walking home from her shift found Shirley nude with her body propped up against a curb. She had been dumped in plain sight, just like the other victims had been, to ensure that the body would be found and the killer would have the thrill of knowing his acts were being witnessed by all. This time, there was no need to wait for the body to be taken to Dr. Peacock. As soon as the body was found, police opened the eyes to find the sockets empty. The eyeball killer had struck again. This time, the removal of the eyeballs was not nearly as neat and precise. There were some accidental cuts, and examiners even found the tip of an X-Acto blade near the eye. X-Acto blades and eyeballs are two things that should never be mentioned in the same sentence, right? The eyeball killer was getting sloppy, or maybe he had been rushed. Again, no male biological evidence was found, but police did find some pubic hair on the body. Profilers were troubled by the fact that the killer had chosen a victim of a different race. That is very rare for serial killers. Usually they do not change the type of victim they take. Signature killers engage in repetitive behavior, taking mementos from their victims. I'm sure many of you know this. They like those items to be similar, and that means many times the race must be the same for her. Sergeant Smith of the Dallas Police Department was convinced that the perpetrator was a regular of Oak Cliff prostitutes. She interviewed them and soon had a conversation with Brenda White, who had a very interesting story to tell. Brenda told Sergeant Smith that she once got into a car with a man who initially agreed to go to a hotel with her, but then changed his mind and said he wanted to go to a field. When Brenda wouldn't go with him, he began to choke her, saying, "I hate whores. I'm going to kill all of you." Brenda had mace with her, and she was able to get it out of her purse, spray the man, and get away. That's really, really lucky. That's not an easy thing to do if you've ever had to pull mace out of your purse. Brenda remembered every detail about the man. She described the man the exact way that Veronica Rodriguez did when the police hadn't believed her. Brenda said the man was a well-built, middle-aged man with salt and pepper hair who was driving a white pickup truck. Sergeant Smith has a hunch. She remembers the man, Axton Schindler, that lived in the home Veronica Rodriguez ran to after Mary Pratt's murder, the man who she claimed told her he knew who the killer was. She pulled Axton's driver's license and gets his address. The address is 1035 El Dorado Street. Sergeant Smith then pulls the title of the property and finds out that the owner of the home Axton Schindler is living in is named Charles Albright. Moments later, she walks by the desk of a fellow officer and he is on the phone. She hears this officer say 1035 El Dorado Street. Sergeant Smith asks, "What was that call about?" And the officer said it was a confidential informant saying that they know who the killer is, that it is a friend of theirs who has a fetish for X-Acto knives. The confidential informant tells the police officer that the man's name is Charles Albright. The informant also says that she had dated Charles Albright years earlier and that he was obsessed with her eyes. She also said Albright kept boxes and boxes of X-Acto knives in his attic. Sergeant Smith then pulls Charles Albright's driver's license to see his photo. Looking back at her is a well-built, middle-aged man with salt and pepper hair. Sergeant Smith finds Brenda White and shows her the photo of Charles Albright. Brenda said, "Yeah, that's him. That's the one who attacked me." They then find Veronica Rodriguez. She is shown 6 photographs of different men. She immediately picks out Charles Albright as the man who shot Mary Pratt. Police finally have a suspect. It is 57-year-old Charles Albright. With the exception of being a little bit older, he fits the FBI profile to a T, even the part that said he would most likely have friends in law enforcement. Albright did. This is a photo of him playing on a softball team that had police officers on it. Police then seize Charles Albright's truck. They take it apart and they use a vacuum cleaner with a sterile bag to gather hairs, grasses, and other material from the carpets and seats. They search Albright's home. Hidden in his fireplace mantle, they find a large collection of guns. They do not find a .44 caliber pistol, but they do find .44 caliber ammunition. They find a large collection of X-Acto knives in one drawer, and in another find the same brand of condoms found with the bodies. This, however, is not enough evidence to arrest Charles Albright. They did not find blood, they did not find a .44 caliber pistol, and most importantly, they did not find the missing eyeballs. During this same time, a friend of Shirley's named Tina Connolly comes forward to the police. She tells them that she was working with Shirley Williams the night she was killed. It was raining very hard, and Tina was wearing a bright yellow raincoat. It's raining so hard that Tina decides to go home, but Shirley says she cannot because she needs money. Tina gives Shirley her yellow raincoat and she leaves. As she's walking away, Tina sees Shirley get into a white pickup truck. Tina then takes police to the field that Shirley would have taken her clients to. Lying in the field is Tina's bright yellow raincoat. The coat is taken to the lab. It has Shirley Williams' blood on it, and technicians scrape the coat, hoping to find hairs, fibers, and other evidence. There are, in fact, some hairs on the coat, and one of them is very unusual. So unusual that technicians could not easily identify it. Human hair looks like a tiled roof under a microscope. The formations of keratin overlap in the same way roof tiles do. But the hair that they found looked more like a chain than a tiled pattern. Not only was the outside of the hair different, but the inside of the hair, called the medulla, was 3 times the size of that in usual human hair samples. The hair was compared with that of dogs and deer and rabbits and cats and field mice. It did not match any of those types of hair. The scientists in the Dallas lab had decades of combined experience with hair identification, but none of them had any idea what this hair was from. Now, this was pre-internet, so they spent hours going through textbooks trying to find a similar hair to what they had found. After a week of research, they found a match. The hair was from the tail of an unusual type of squirrel. The CSI team then began going through all of the hairs from the vacuum cleaner bag used on Charles Albright's car and home. After hours of searching through that vacuum cleaner bag, they find a non-human hair. It is the hair from the tail of a squirrel, and it is microscopically similar to the hair found on Tina's raincoat, the one Shirley had been wearing when she was killed. At this point, journalists begin tearing into Charles Albright's past. He has convictions for inappropriate conduct with children and for burglary. They also find out that Charles was brought up by a very overprotective adopted mother. Okay, true crime family here, you know where this is going, right? It's really quite incredible how often it is that serial killers have an overbearing, domineering, and a lot of the times abusive mother. It's just eerie how often that's the case. Charles' mother is so domineering and controlling that when he was little, she kept a goat in the backyard for Charles to always have fresh goat milk because she believed that cow's milk was unhealthy. She enrolls Charles in piano lessons, painting lessons, and most importantly, a taxidermy class. Charles and his mother would spend hours killing, cleaning, and stuffing birds. Charles' mother taught him how to very carefully remove the bird's eyes in a way that didn't leave any visible damage. Charles became obsessed with eyes and eyeballs. His mother was very frugal, and she would never let Charles buy the beautiful glass eyes made for taxidermy. Instead, she gave him cheap plastic buttons to use in place of glass taxidermy eyes. Oh my gosh, this is so creepy. Charles was always unhappy about the fact that he had to use plastic buttons, and he felt the buttons ruined the otherwise perfect taxidermy pieces. When Charles was young, he was actually scolded once in a store for trying to steal glass taxidermy eyes. He wanted them so badly. As Charles got older, he got in trouble a couple times for having a gun, and he even went to jail. His mother consistently made excuses for him and said that Charles was smarter than everyone else and needed to be given special attention. When Charles was in college, his best friend broke up with his girlfriend. The friend threw all of the photos he had of the ex-girlfriend in the trash. He was absolutely horrified when he went into his bedroom to find that Charles had removed the photos from the trash, cut all of the eyes out of each and every photo with an X-Acto knife, and pasted them all over his bedroom walls. That's totally normal, right? That's not creepy at all. Don't you remember when your friend broke up with their partner and then you did that? No? Yeah, me either. It's fine. Everything's fine. FBI profiler Hazelwood said, Charles Albright actually felt that women were more beautiful without their eyes. A journalist also uncovers a story about how at a softball game one day, some girls drove by and waved. Someone on the team said, "Hey Charlie, why don't you go for it?" Charles became angry and said, I can tell they're and stormed off. The next day he apologized and he told his teammates, "You have to understand, my birth mother was a and I hate." March 23, 1991. Charles Albright is arrested and charged with 3 counts of murder. The case against him was not very strong for Mary Pratt and Susan Beth Peterson, but they did have the hair evidence with hairs from his car matching hairs found on Shirley Williams' coat in Shirley's case. Albright's defense tried to blame his tenant, Axton Schindler, for all of the murders, but that didn't fly because the women all identified Albright and his pubic hair was found to match one on Shirley Williams as well. The trial went on for several months and then the jury was sent to deliberate. December 18, 1991. Charles Albright is found guilty of the murder of Shirley Williams. The jury could not make a decision on the murders of Mary Pratt and Susan Peterson. He was sentenced to life in prison. All throughout his incarceration, he has maintained his innocence.
One of them, Stephen King. This gypsy had a little tiny spoon for removing eyeballs in a book called Thinner. Then there was another reference in a book called Mine about if this woman catches me and this woman had her baby, says I'll pull her eyes out and stuff them down her throat.
This guy really thinks a lot of himself, doesn't he? You can see it, right? August 22nd, 2020. While incarcerated in Lubbock, Texas, Charles Albright died in custody at the age of 87. He never admitted to what he had done. I think we can all agree the world is a much safer place now that the eyeball killer is gone. Thank you for joining me today on Dining with Death, True Crime Tuesday. I sure am happy that you're here. Please like and subscribe. Feel free to leave comments. I always like to hear from you guys. I do the best I can to bring you the things that you want to see. Stay safe and be kind to each other, and I'll see you next time on Dining with Death. Bye.